Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This podcast is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Now more than ever, our internet reliance is increasing, from talking to loved ones, to streaming your favourite shows, to watching any of the podcasts here on Stretford Paddock. And with that increased footprint, so does our need for proper internet security. And Surfshark is a VPN service that encrypts your data, which stops anyone unwanted from seeing it. Another great thing about Surfshark is it allows you to see all of the great content from around the world. Simply sign in to Brazil and check out their Netflix. You can watch Croatian Amazon Prime. And when you're on holiday, you can still watch all of your shows from back home simply by changing it to your home nation. It is that simple. And currently Surfshark have an amazing deal. By clicking the link in the description and using our code Paddock, you can get a whole 3 months extra for free. That is 3 months extra for free. In addition, Surfshark also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, use that link in the description and use the code Paddock for 3 months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast. My name is Joe and I'm joined by an absolute host of Manchester United fans. I'm joined by Jay Motty, of course. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. I'm over it already.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm done.
Not.
I'm done with it.
We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Rashford in particular is coming for a lot of stick.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that. But I've also got Adam Ashton with us today. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to have you on. Is it your first time on the podcast?
I have been on before, a couple of years ago when I was playing for Paddock FC.
Yeah, there you go.
That was quite a while ago. I don't even remember what the topic of conversation was. Probably cake, I think.
Probably cake.
It was cake. He's plugging like early.
He's gone early there, but I respect that.
It's just one of those, like, is it cake or is it a puppy? Oh my God, it was a puppy and the puppy's had its face cut off. Ronaldo Brown's with us as well. How are you?
I'm all right.
We can't be that well, can we?
I've had better weekends, man. I think my weekends have been terrible this year because
you're a United fan.
I'm a United fan, but I'm also a Giants fan, so the weekends are just full of losses.
More fool you. We're gonna talk about Rashford. I think everyone's talking about him. It sort of needs to be spoken about, doesn't it? Because he's someone that is, I might as well put it up front, a fan favourite on this channel.
Yes.
You know, one of our favourite players.
Yeah.
The sort of person and the sort of player that we celebrate when things are going well, and maybe at times are slightly reluctant to turn an eye to him when things aren't going so well. Yeah. But he's coming for so much stick in the last few weeks, and the performances have been so subpar that I do think we have to speak about it. Yeah. And I just want to start with a couple of quotes from Jamie Carragher and Roy Keane from last night, and we'll go from there. But just talking about watching, this is Carragher. Watching Marcus Rashford last night was an unacceptable performance for a few reasons. He said, this is an interesting comparison as well. He said, for Rashford and myself and Gerrard at Liverpool, it's your job to fix it and drag other players with you. Talking about being a local player, he says as well, as a local player, your job is to drag others up. You do not stop running for that badge, and your supporters are supposedly one of them. As you are supposedly one of them. Which is an interesting angle to go down. Obviously, one of the reasons people like him so much and we like him so much is because he's a United Academy player, but also he's a United fan. It's not just, did you come through the academy? He's a Manchester United fan. Does that make it sort of slightly more puzzling to you when you see maybe instances of him not putting in the effort in that it looks like he should be?
There's a lot that puzzles me about what's going on with Rashford at the minute, because he's not stupid. He's not. He knows what's going on with his perception and how he's not affecting games as he should be. And he knows a lot of the criticism centres around, and the reason he's not been as effective is because of effort. And if he just did a little bit more, he'd reap the rewards of that. And I don't understand why he's not doing it. In the past, I've made excuses for Marcus, and you're right. Maybe there's an element where we've been OTT in our support of him because we do love the kid. And we've gone, okay, is he suffering from a lack of confidence? Is it injury? We know he's played with injuries. But at the minute, I'm just seeing it just looks like effort. It just looks like he's not really trying as hard as he could. And that's unforgivable. And it pains me to say that, because I hate to sort of sit here and criticise a player that's come through the academy and has done so well over the last few years, well, especially last year in particular. But it's just not happening for him. And you saw it against Newcastle. And there were certain instances where, yes, I get it when it's frustrating, when you feel like you're chasing the ball, it's just been hoofed up and you're like, why am I sort of running after this? It's a lost cause. But then there's other instances where he's lost possession, or someone's regained it, and he's not tracked him. He's just sort of done this little skip and waved his arms out, and you think that's not okay. And I can't defend that. And he should know that isn't all right. And when you've dropped 2 goals all season, and it's not really happening for you, try a bit harder, try a bit more, because you're not in a position where you can go, oh, do you know what? At least I'm having a good season. I've weighed in with numbers. You've not really done enough this season as it is. No. So to see that lack of energy and effort, it's not okay. And I do feel like Marcus gets a lot of untold criticism or undue criticism. I feel like he has become a bit of a figure of hate for a lot of fans. But there's certain circumstances where criticism is warranted. And recently it's there. And I think that performance at St James's, yes, other players I'm sure we'll mention weren't good either. But it pains me to agree with Jamie Carragher. Marcus knows what it's like to play for Manchester United. He knows what it's about being a fan. He's 26 years old. I know you're going to get into Roy Keane's comments. Yeah. He's just signed this big deal, so he's here for the long term. He should be doing better than what he is doing, and we can't just put that down to confidence and injuries.
In terms of the effort side of things, because we'll get to the goals and that sort of stuff, which seemingly aren't coming either. Do you think that we are seeing less effort from Rashford than usual, or do you think there's almost more of an emphasis on his lack of defensive abilities because he isn't scoring?
I don't think Rashford's ever been someone that was exactly a workhorse off the ball. I feel like, if anything, I think he put more in terms of going forward to that side of the game. He still completes the most sprints out of Manchester United players, but that's always going forward. But in terms of the work rate side of it, I'm thinking if things aren't going for you on the ball as much as you are, he's not scoring, he's not assisting, he's not playing well, he's making bad decisions, he's running into players, running into blind alleys, and he's putting in poor performances week in, week out. I feel like the only justifiable equaliser that you can have for it is working hard off the ball, running back, putting the extra yard. Make yourself at least an asset for the team in some way, rather than just kind of having this terrible body language, almost looking stroppy and mopey, and that kind of behaviour can leak out onto the rest of the team. And at that level of football in the Premier League, especially when you're playing against Newcastle at St James's Park and in games in such high stakes, we say it all the time, you can't have any passengers whatsoever. And I felt like we had too many on the weekend, and it could have been worse. And you know, when basically it's one of the oldest adages of you're only as good as your weakest link. So when you've got a player performing like that, it just imbalances the whole team, and then it means that someone else has to run further because you're not running enough, and then that person comes out of position, and it just imbalances the whole side. And I think when you've got Rashford doing it week in, week out, and you've got other players doing it, I don't think United stand a chance. And I think he might need a spell out of the team, but from where I'm standing, I thought his performance on the weekend, in terms of what he showed and what he gave, wasn't acceptable.
What do you make of it? Because it is odd, isn't it? There's someone in the comments before saying this is the real Rashford. Last season was an anomaly. That's Billy Price. But you look and you got 30 goals last season, obviously the best return he's ever had. Then 5 the year before, which is more in line with this season in terms of trajectory. 5 in 32. He's got 2 in 18 so far. So you double that, you're looking at similar numbers. But the year before that was 21 goals. The year before that was 22 goals. 22 in 44, which is actually, other than last season, his best goals to game ratio of his career. The year before that was 13 in 47, 13 in 52. So that was when he was, very young. So it's not as though he's always like this, numbers-wise. Maybe defensively he is, but to say that last year was an anomaly is slightly unfair, isn't it? What do you make of it? Or do you think actually we're just seeing sort of the worst parts of Rashford without any of the good bits? Yeah,
I mean, people are saying it just looks to me like lack of effort, but I don't think Rashford's on the pitch thinking I can't be bothered, I don't want to play, I don't want to be here. But I think when the rest of the team's playing badly, everyone's head drops, and your head drops, and you get frustrated, and things start going wrong. Your touch is slightly off, things bounce away from you, and then that's when your performance starts dropping. But I think players like Rooney could, if the rest of the team were playing like that, players like Wayne Rooney could grab the game by the scruff of the neck and run with, and bring everybody else to his level. And I don't see Rashford doing that, and I wish I saw that from him, because I think he's got it in him. I've seen him do it in the past. It just doesn't seem. So I don't know if it's something that like Ten Hag said to him, what the coaches are doing with him in training and stuff. I don't know why this is happening this season. I can't put my finger on it.
I agree with bits of that in terms of sometimes I've said in the past where surely if you're Rashford and you're a United fan, you're a local boy and United aren't doing as well as they used to when you used to watch and growing up. Surely that would galvanise you a little bit to put in a little bit more effort or to care more than you show. And then the only kind of excuse that I used to try and make for him, which I don't think I can make more, is like maybe it might be like a mentality issue where when he is in a bad run of form and things aren't going his way, or there is a little bit of adversity, it's almost like he cares about it too much, or he gets in his own head about it too much, that the little things just frustrate him too much, and his reaction to that isn't a great one. It's almost like he almost down tools a bit, or he sulks and he mopes rather than actually thinking, I'm going to try harder. So I don't know, it could be either of those reasons, but to be fair, both of them aren't great, because you'd hope that if you do care that much and it does bother you that much that you aren't playing great, and all this has been said about you, that you'd want to at least try and almost prove everyone wrong. But I feel like he's almost put on a bit of a bravado where it seems like I'm not arsed, like it is what it is. Everyone's giving me stick. I don't think it's justified. Obviously all these players have egos as well, so he'll be thinking that, and almost like he's feeling sorry for himself a little bit. And to me, I just think it's a bad state of affairs, because at the end of the day he's meant to be one of our marquee players at Manchester United Football Club, which is still one of the biggest clubs in the world, and we need players that we can hang our hat on, and unfortunately you can't have someone that's on 350k a week. We've seen it with Sancho, and putting in performances like that and then showing that kind of effort, because it looks like a bit of an indictment on United as an institution.
It ends up reflecting on the manager culture, as well, doesn't it? Like if people aren't running, that's something a manager of any quality, tactical, regardless of how good they are tactically, any manager should be able to get their players running. Because I can run, you can, any of us four could play for Man United and run really hard. We'd be shit on the ball compared to everyone else, some less so than others. But we could certainly sprint and track my man. You know what I mean? If I see Almiron going past me, I can go, I should probably be with him and probably goal side of him. Like that's, I was saying this on the View yesterday, these things should be instinctive for players, let alone, I couldn't be arsed. You should do it without thinking. Your man runs past you go with him. That's just standard, that's under 10 stuff.
I don't understand as well, right? Like, there's been a lot of talk of Anthony Gordon should be given a start in the England team over Marcus Rashford because of the season he's having. And I don't think Anthony Gordon's a better player than Marcus Rashford. I don't think he's more talented. No. I don't think he's got more ability. I think he's playing better than he is right now. I think out of the two, if you had to pick one of them for your team, I'd pick Anthony Gordon, because he's getting goals, he's a danger in the team, he's causing the opposition problems. And if you're Marcus Rashford and you're actually playing against this kid and you're seeing him scoring against you, doing those bits, terrorising your defence, does that not think, I need to show what I'm about here? Do you know what I mean? People saying this guy's going to get an England team ahead of me. No, I'm not having that one. And he's not. If you've got Kobbie Mainoo coming into the team, an 18-year-old through the academy, and he's playing better than you, and he's showing more effort, you're not going to say, bro, I'm 8 years older than this kid. I'm like one of the leaders in this team. I need to show him what it means to play for Manchester United. Alejandro Garnacho's another one. He's 19 years old. Yeah. He's more effective than Marcus. When he gets the ball, looks like he knows what he's doing. He tracks back. Again, does that bit of pride not come in and go, look, I need to... Because whenever I've watched United throughout the years, the youngsters who are coming through have always had those examples that have been set for them. You've always had those players that you go like, whether it's I don't know, going back, Gary Neville or a Roy Keane. I know Roy Keane didn't come through the academy, but especially the academy players like Scholesy and Giggs and experienced players, especially ones that have come through the academy who know what it means to play for Manchester United, like Wes Brown, players like that, but also senior pros. And at United, I know it's an old sort of cliche that lots of pundits keep saying, but we don't really have that. Marcus should be one of those guys. Like you saying, Ronnie, he is a marquee. I think he sells more shirts than anyone. He's one of our marquee players. He's on a long-term deal. He's hitting his peak in terms of his age and his physicality and everything. He's just coming off the back of his best season ever. Yeah. And yet now he's putting in, for me, this is as bad as he was under Ralph Rangnick. Yeah. The two worst performances I've ever seen from Marcus Rashford was the derby and this one. And I've seen them both within, a month of each other? Yeah. And I don't like criticising him, but we've got to be honest about what he's doing. It's not good enough. It isn't. No.
And I've heard all this about he's not happy with playing on the right, and as me who's played as a winger, it does make a difference which side that you do play on, which you prefer. But you can't say, all right, Rashford's putting in these performances because he's playing on the right side and he prefers to play on the left, because that has nothing to do with work rate, desire, want to. That has nothing to do with it, because Rooney's one of the best players that I've ever played in the Premier League, and one of the best players that I've ever played for Manchester United. And how many positions did Fergie play
in? Every position that wasn't the back four.
Rooney got dropped, right, for the Champions League quarter-final against Real Madrid for Danny Welbeck. And when he came on, he was like a man possessed.
Yeah.
He didn't, I think it might have been the second round, sorry. He didn't come on and sulk.
He wasn't a man pissed off.
No.
Or he might have been pissed off.
Yeah, but he channeled that into energy and effort. And then his performances after that game, it was like, I'm getting back in this team. I'm showing what I'm about.
Play left, he'll play right, he'll play up front. Wherever Fergie wanted him to play, he'd put in 100% effort. And that was the way a majority of players played during that era under United, where we were successful.
How many of those players have we got now?
I almost think that's why Varane and Casemiro were so important last season, because it's better always. Like, I think in terms of knowing the club, knowing the morals, putting the standards in, you would assume an academy player who has gone on to win a lot, someone like a Neville, a Scholes, a Giggs, that's like the ideal one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone that's come through and at least had a long portion of the career there. After that, you're looking at the likes of Keane, Ferdinand, Schmeichel, players like that who have been there from a young age and just have won everything there. They can instill that. And then after that, you like someone, look at the squad now. The only way you can do it, I think, is you almost have to import that in like a Varane or a Casemiro and sort of hope that them having it for another club can come to your club. But we're getting to the point now where we don't have anyone who's won a lot at Man United. That player doesn't exist anymore.
No.
And that's not to say De Gea leaving is what's caused all of this, because he didn't seem like the sort of person that, you know, would override and come in and instill mentality. But no one at Manchester United has won a Premier League with Manchester United. No one has won a Champions League. No one has won a Champions League group tie. Won a game at Old Trafford, have they?
A knockout game.
Knockout game at Old Trafford. Have we won one?
2014 was the one against Olympiacos.
Right. No single player plays for Man United has won a Champions League knockout home match for Manchester United. Yeah. There is no mentality to instill. Yeah. It can't be there. Like, they haven't got it. How could they have it? And fair enough, you know, it's not Rashford's fault entirely. Obviously, he's been part of the squads that we haven't been amazing over the last 10 years. In fact, he's a very tiny part of why we haven't. But I almost wonder, like, Casemiro and Varane do a lot more than just pass the ball and whatever. People like Ibrahimovic brought it. You could see the difference when he arrived. You can sometimes import that from other teams, but that, you know, it doesn't last as long, because first of all, it's hard to get players who have got that mentality, because you're either getting them after their peak, because otherwise why would they leave the club where they earned it, or you're getting them when they've want a bigger contract or whatever. We've seen that. So you almost have to bring them in and then quickly have the success of, actually, you know, Casemiro and Varane came in and we won the Champions League, and now Rashford knows how to win a Champions League. But we're almost like trying to grab for it. And in these moments where it gets really hard, I almost feel like there's no one in the squad where you look at them and go, you know how to turn this around. You know how to turn this around. Who in our squad has gone through a period of their career like this and come out the other side with a league title? None of them.
Yeah.
And it isn't that easy to just have the mentality. People go, oh, you know, Rashford's got to work harder, and he has. But also think what his career is up until now, being the best or close to best player for the most hated, criticised, like battered Manchester United squad in recent history, and he's been this sort of talisman / you know, what's the word, scapegoat for that team, depending on whether it's a good year or a bad year. But he must be thinking, fuck this. Like, I've been here for 7 years, and I've been good in some of those years, and we've essentially won next to nothing, really.
Yeah,
and I wonder how hard it is to keep that up.
I get that, but then I still feel, and maybe I'm being a slightly romantic, but you know, you've been at the club since you were a kid. You know what it's like to play for Manchester United. You've got that ability. There's no excuses almost for the lack of effort that we're seeing.
No, there's no excuse.
I know you're not making excuses, but you know, Brian Robson played in a team that a lot of the time was bang average, and he was one of the best midfielders in the world. I'd argue in mid-80s, he was literally the best midfielder in the world. Yeah. And he played for a United team that got nowhere near a title for years, and he kept going, he kept carrying the team out of it, he kept dragging his team, you know, beat Maradona's Barcelona, won us 3 FA Cups, kept going. Even when we won the title, he was still there, playing his part in those back-to-back title wins, including the double win. And when he was dropped for the FA Cup final in 1994, he didn't kick off, he got it. Do you know what I mean? And that's the kind of thing you want to see from a leader and a player who's been at the club a long time and who knows what it's about. And Marcus knows these things. He does. And it's not even just about goals and assists and stuff. I've seen your stat, Ronnie, about the amount of minutes. He's gone 204 minutes, a goal every 204 minutes. Very similar goals to game ratio as someone like Mark Hughes. Yeah, Mark Hughes only like a 1 in 3 goals. People would look at Mark Hughes' goal. He was a successful Manchester United player. Yeah, in terms of goals, he gave you the similar, almost identical numbers to Marcus. Why is Mark Hughes successful? Because he won things, because he always gave you effort, always gave you energy, always turned up. If he wasn't getting you a goal, he was getting involved, he was holding the ball up, he was, harrying his defenders or whatever. The trouble with Marcus is if you take goals away from him, there's not much else there.
That is an issue.
There isn't. I'm sorry.
And that's the problem. Also, I would say people might assume this. I don't want this to be the reason, but it could be as well, is where we're talking about the seasons he's had for United and how many absolute elite seasons he's had, which is probably last season. Yeah. And last season it could have been what you'd refer to in American sports as a contract year. So
explain that.
So you go into so you have a lot of, they call it prove it years, which is often the case with prove it years. Like you get in salaries or whatever in like the NBA and NFL, where a player could be marquee, could be not, goes into a year where they only have like a 1-year contract left. They're not sure whether it's going to be renewed or not, and they play. Usually, what happens is they end up playing the best football, the best form of their career during that year, in order to kind of up their value in terms of getting a new contract or getting a big contract somewhere else. And it almost could smell of that from Rashford, because Rashford's contract was running out, wasn't it? Was it not?
Yeah, he just renewed, didn't he?
Renewed, or his future seemed in doubt, because United did seem to be going down a route of thinking, is Rashford here for long term? Is he going to, because he was still going through a bit of a rough patch during that time as well, before he had the purple patch form. And then he's done his best season, his best ever goals return, some of his best form that he's had since United, and then as soon as he's got the contract renewal, he's gone into the season and reverted back to type.
But type is unfair, isn't it?
So then people,
calling 2 goals in 18 type is the only other time he's ever done that is the season.
Do you know what I would say to contradict that slightly? I get your point, but I would actually say, if we're going to look at it a little bit deeper, he started tailing off towards the end of last season. He was on that mad purple patch from about September to March or whatever. And then if you look at his goals and his assist ratio from March to the end of the season, I think it was something like 3 goals in 18 games or something. He tailed off. So I don't know if it is the contract thing. I know if people said that, because he hadn't signed a new deal by this time, but his levels have dropped. Not to the point they have now, but there's something there where he wasn't quite hitting those high marks that he was getting, where he scored, was it in 8 consecutive home games? And he was absolutely, that celebration just became iconic. I mean, it was getting copied everywhere. So I don't know. It feels like he did tail off a little bit towards the end. I see your point. But this season, other than 1 or 2 games, I think he's been massively underwhelming. And if he'd have come into the team playing like this when he did burst onto the scene in 2015, whatever it was, I don't think he'd have got a look in. I think people know he's not up to it. It's, he came onto the scene and was phenomenal.
People would have probably said Andy Elanga or so.
No, they would have. And it's these stats, like Elanga's got more goals in him this season, and all these other stats we see, and like you said, the 2 goals in 18, all this stuff. It's not nice to say, but the saving grace could be, as a fan, we could sit here and we could go, we watch him week in, week out, and I would love nothing more than to go, I watch him week in, week out, forget the goals and assists, I can see what he's bringing to this team, and at the minute I can't see anything.
Like, what's his motivation at the minute though? Because United don't look like they're particularly going to win anything this season. Do you think the contract thing is a thing? Because for me, for somebody who's never played football for money before, for me it was always like, you're on the pitch and you're in the game then, and you're just playing, I want to win this game no matter what, I do not want to lose this game. Do you think players once they've got this contract, is it just a case of like, I don't particularly like playing football, but this is my job now, and like I can't see that being Rashford's mentality? But
it's whether they lose a bit of fire though, innit? You don't know whether like it's more whether it's, because in my opinion, you can't make it to the level of game that these players are made at without having that inside you. That's what I believe.
Part of it.
That's what partly I believe. So it almost makes you think, but wasn't part of the journey to get to have the life that they're living and to be playing for big football clubs. And is it kind of a culture that's been bred at United with the overinflated wages and the kind of culture that's built over the past 10 years of giving players like undeserved money and kind of accolades where players almost feel like they've made it already. They're already at regardless of what you think of Manchester United right now. United as a football club is still at the pinnacle of world football in terms of where you will go as a player.
Yeah.
Like how many, like if you're getting a transfer upwards from Manchester United, where is it? Real Madrid, Barcelona.
Yeah, that's the only two.
Do you know what I mean?
Realistically.
So for a lot of these players, they felt like
size.
For a lot of these players, they feel like they've made it as high as they can go. They've been given these big, huge luxury contracts, and then it's almost like they all either down tool or they never progress or they never improve, because I can't remember last time we've actually signed a player and they've actually improved during the time at United either. So it's a bit, it's just...
What do you make of the Sancho situation? Because I brought this up a few months ago. Because them two seem quite pally. Do you think that might have anything to do with this? Do you think he might be slightly annoyed the way Sancho's been treated, or I don't know.
Or is it just leading to like a feeling of things are a bit shit here? It's a bit shit to be.
I'm not excusing it, but because they're quite, the mates. He's training with the kids and having to eat his lunch out of a lunchbox and lock the doors and all this nonsense. And I just wonder whether that has sort of maybe got in the way of Marcus's relationship with the manager a little bit, because that's the manager that's done this to your mate. I don't know. I'm asking, rather than saying. Do you think that could be playing a part? Because it is odd for me, the levels we've seen him drop off. Because I don't buy into this thing. I've seen some right drivel about he's always been rubbish. Well, he hasn't.
No.
He just hasn't. He's never been that good. Well, he has.
No player who is shit has ever scored 30 goals whilst playing for a Premier League team. That has never happened. That hasn't happened ever.
I can't begin to think that a player's having bad run of form because one of their mates just fell out with.
So you don't think that's relevant? That's fair enough. I'm not saying it is. I'm asking.
And if that is the case, that's
because I'm just trying to. Because I look at it, and there's times when I feel confidence after the World Cup. Sorry, the Euros under Ralph Rangnick. I thought his confidence had gone. And I felt that reflected in his performances when he dropped that season where he scored 5 goals in 32 games. Yeah. You could see he was getting dropped for Anthony Lango, and no matter what we say, and I know the numbers this season.
Yeah, Lango was playing out of him for a little period.
And I think that should never be happening. Do you know what I mean? Like for a player like Marcus, obviously everyone was on his case. He'd been like the centre of attention during COVID with his feeding the kids and all the rest of it. And then I felt like there was this sort of backlash, and it seemed to get into his head. And I felt for him.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is confidence this time around. So I'm thinking, okay, if it's not confidence, then what is it?
It's definitely got to confidence now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's no way he's still got the confidence he had in last year. I know you're not saying that.
Yeah.
But I do think that is a like we've sort of seen with Rashford that I think when he's playing at his best, he's one of United's best players.
Yeah.
But he isn't the type of player that can play way better than the rest of the team, if you know what I mean. He needs the team to be doing well for him to do really well. Like if you look at his good seasons, it was under Solskjaer when everyone was loving it. First 2 years, third and second finish.
Yeah.
Then the season Solskjaer got sacked.
Well, it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, he got shagged out of a job.
Yeah.
Rashford had his worst ever season.
Yeah.
Last season, United were firing on all cylinders, getting to cup finals here, there, and everywhere. And Rashford had his best ever season. Yeah. This season, everyone else is playing shit, and so is Rashford.
Yeah.
I think, and that to me is a confidence thing or a mentality thing or the ability to sort of override what else is going on. Like someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, even the years where Madrid got battered by Barca in the league and didn't win the European Cup, he still put in 56 goals, 60 goals, because he's a psychopath. Marcus Rashford is someone that needs to be in a good team to be at his best. And I don't think he's not the guy to drag us back to back up.
That doesn't justify $375 a week. Then if you need other players.
I also feel there's a bit of that, like you say, like the atmosphere thing. You mentioned those seasons. Do you remember like that last season under Jose where it was horrible?
Yeah.
Ollie's come in, everyone's loving it, and it was like the performances picked up. Marcus was loving life, and everyone, it was like a real happy atmosphere. And then when Ralph Rangnick came in, the atmosphere went down and his performances went down.
That's what I'm saying.
Then when Ten Hag comes in, he's like, we was there in, was it Thailand? I think, no, it was Melbourne, I think it was, where Ten Hag had Marcus Rashford with him for his press conference, one of his first ever press conferences as United manager. And he said, this guy is my guy and he's an example to other kids coming through the academy. And Rashford had just had a 5-goal season. Yeah. So it felt like a moment there when the manager said, look, I'm backing you. Forget all the Anthony Lang stuff and whether Ralph Rangnick didn't rate you. I rate you and you're my guy. And he responded.
Yeah, I think certain players do need to be in a team that's winning to see the best out of them. I think a lot of players are like that. That's not a Rashford thing. Most players struggle when their team's struggling, because of course you do. When your confidence drops, when you feel shit going into work, when people aren't passing to you, when everyone else is struggling, you're going to drop off. But the top players just sort of put the numbers in regardless. Yeah. Like, you know, like I mentioned, Ronaldo, the real elite players can play for a team that don't win a trophy that season, but they're still doing pretty much 80% of their regular numbers. The problem that we're seeing with Rashford is, when United aren't doing well, we're seeing 20% of his regular numbers.
It's like that as well, because Roy Keane made the point about, he was praising, I think it was Keane, who said about, go back to the wide players I played with, Giggs, Beckham, Sharp, Kanchelskis, let me tell you, they ran. Ryan Giggs had seasons where he would put up 4 goals and 8 assists.
Yeah.
And United would win trophies that season. But he was in the side because he always offered you something. You could look at him and go, all right, he's putting a shift in, he's causing problems, he's helping out defensively, he's doing the other things. Like what Keno was mentioning there, the trouble you got with Rashford is, if you're just doing it off the eye test, as people like to say, if you're just watching it, you go, you know.
That's what I mean. It's more about the sum of your parts now in football as well. And I think over the years, what might have hindered Rashford as well is he's not, in terms of himself, I don't think there's been enough adaptability in his game. Do you know what I mean? Where he seems to thrive in one kind of way of football, which is when it's vertical and it's transitional and he can use his pace and everything's a little bit more instinctive, where he doesn't have to think as much. But then when you've gone into this football now where top teams want to control games and be a little bit more like structured and regimented, I feel like it's almost exposed some of his like lack of decision making at times, and his ball retention, his touch being loose and him being a bit erratic. And I feel like it's one of them where maybe that's just how it's kind of been for him. Do you know what I mean? Because if you think of it, Rashford's never been in a United title winning side, has he? He's been part of a team now that is, as it obviously not just down to him, but he's been part of a club and an institution that has underachieved for nearly
10 years.
10 years now.
Yep.
And he's, whether you like it or not, you'd give someone credit for being parts of title winning teams, but he's been part of a team that's been constantly failing. That's what people have kind of laid at the doorstep of Martial and Shaw and stuff. So it has to be laid at the front of Rashford as well. So in me, I feel like he's not done enough to kind of improve his game in certain ways. And now that we've become a team that's tried to play a certain way, and football's gone away where we're not playing on a counter and it's all this, where it's just hoof up to Rashford down the left when we've been soaking up pressure and hopefully he does something instinctive. I think it's showing the limitations of him as a player. Maybe he can be an asset, but I think now he's 26, 27 next. I think we've probably seen like what the best of Rashford looks like and what the worst of him looks like, and too often we've seen the worst side.
I think if we see that best side of him more often though, because last season, you know, we're still the same manager. I know obviously he's trying to tweak things and he's brought in different players, and Onana, and we're playing out from the back, and it's not quite as, you know, speedy through the lines, you know, standing on the halfway line, clipping balls over the top. But he's still someone that can have world class seasons, I think. And I'm not sort of convinced that he's an all-round world-class player that can do everything and is very adaptable, and maybe that's a limitation of him, that he's not very adaptable, like you said. But I do think that he could certainly have a place in a team that isn't just chipping it over the top. But because it's not like we're holding possession. I know maybe some of that's because he's struggling to do that or whatever, but it's not like, let's imagine Jack Grealish at City as an example. He's been set up. He's kind of the opposite, where he doesn't like to go in behind. He doesn't like to do that.
Keeps the ball.
He keeps the ball well. He gets fouled and all this. But then you see someone like Doku come in, who's a bit more Rashford-esque in his directness, his speed, gets in behind, and he's kicked him out of the team. So it's not just the case that, you know, to play modern style, you have to be cut back and pass to your full-back and keep possession. Sometimes just raw pace and sort of that fizz is still a massive asset. We've just got to get the rest of the team working around him, which isn't ideal, is it? Sometimes you want those big players to drag the rest of the team up, like Bruno's trying to do and failing, but you can at least see the effort there. I don't know, maybe some of Bruno's effort slightly for the cameras, but I do think that, because it's a separate conversation, but sometimes I wish you'd just tell McTominay to track back instead of running past McTominay.
That's another point as well.
Can I just get into a few comments before we go into that? Because I do want to talk about Bruno, and we'll sort of transition into that after these, because obviously I don't want to talk about Rashford. Fergal McClement says, do you think ex-player pundits don't help though... Sorry. Do Do you think ex-pundits don't help, though? Have you ever seen Carragher destroy any Liverpool player to the level of Keane and Neville towards United players?
I haven't, but then a lot of the time as well, Carragher's seen his team challenging and winning things.
Since he retired, they've been ace. He's the one that should be criticised.
You know, they've got to
He's
three.
Their Rashford.
He is. They've got to 3 Champions League finals. They've won the title. They've finished on 98 points, or no, sorry, 97.
Yeah.
They've won the league.
Finished on 98, didn't they, when they didn't win it?
Right. Sorry, I thought it was 97 when
Maybe
they didn't win it.
Maybe it was 97. Sorry.
And they've won the League Cup and the FA Cup, and they've. I know he is very biased, and he kind of wears that on a badge of honour, and I do think Neville can be going too far, but especially with Keane, when I look at Keane and listen to his words, I get where he's coming from, because he's coming from a mindset of, if you're at Manchester United, as Ronnie said, you have reached the pinnacle, you have reached the pinnacle of football, you have better be at the top of your game, you give your all, you do your best, and he's watching players playing for the club that he represented, practically every single game with at least an 8 out of 10 performance, and they're dropping like 3 out of 10s, 4 out of 10s, and he's like, how are these playing for United? What's going on here?
How is this the same team I played
like
for?
that, this shouldn't be happening, and he's right, it shouldn't. And it's sort of going back to the whole thing of, you come through the academy, you know what it's like, that Carragher was banging on about. And I hate to get agreeing with Jamie Carragher, I think he talks untold nonsense most of the time. But McTominay's another one. What is he, 27 now? Coming through the academy, been at the club for 8 years.
The new Lingard.
What's 26? Sorry. Where was he the other night? What was he doing? He was nowhere.
He's 27 in 3 weeks. So
right, okay. He's 26 till he's 27.
Yeah.
Don't you understand fractions? That's not how it works. But like, where was he? Kobe Mainoo wanted to get more involved in McTominay, and he's a child.
I know.
It's embarrassing.
It is. Piran Hobbs says, I've got a little tinfoil hat theory. Liverpool have one good year and then one bad year. Allegedly, this is due to performance-enhancing drugs. Could we be doing the same thing? What, are we doing it drugs by the decade?
I don't know.
When's the
Also,
good year kicking in?
Is he saying we should do this?
Yeah, maybe we should do, because I'm still waiting for the good year.
The thing is, though, when you do that, and you're right, Liverpool do have a drop-off, but you've got credit in the bank. Klopp's got credit in the bank. So when he got to 3 Champions League finals in 5 years.
When they have good years, they get to the Champions League final or win the Premier League.
Yeah, so he can. He's won a Champions League.
He's won every trophy under him as well.
Yeah. So if he does have...
sorry, Europa Conference League.
Yeah, exactly.
Next time I'll have a word about that. Thank you. Won every trophy, my eye.
When he has these bad seasons, which, let's face facts, Klopp's had some horrendous seasons. Losing 6 out of 7 games at Anfield was unbelievable.
Last season was pretty rough.
Yeah, but he'll get away with it because he can go, well, I've won a Champions League, I've won a league here, I've given you 98 points, 97 points. Are you going to get rid of me? No. Eric Ten Hag doesn't have that privilege. Some of these players don't have that. You know what I mean? Mo Salah has a bad season, don't win anything. He scores 40 goals.
I know, yeah. Last season he literally got like 32 goals in a bad year. Harry Kane the same. Bad season, 30 goals.
Yeah, Marcus is on 2 at the minute. Yeah. That's the difference.
Danny says, when he was 18 to 20, he defended more. It's lazy now. Buzz Mjolnir says, imagine earning 300 to 400k a week. Imagine walking around the pitch. Rashford is a weak character. He's a poster child for the Malays. I mean, the Malays started before he even made his debut.
He's a poster child for what?
For the Malays.
Oh, I thought you said the millennials.
Oh no, Malays. Big Dog says, Giggs ran, Scholes ran, Rooney ran. The only person who didn't run is Ronaldo in the year he won the Ballon d'Or, who is Martial and Rashford. Yeah, that's the thing. If you're looking at work rate, Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the more petulant, least sort of defensively minded players I've ever seen in my life. But he makes up with that with these sort of aforementioned 65 goals a season.
And also, the thing with the Ronaldo, he would chase lost causes a lot of the time because he thought there might be a goal at the end of it for me.
Yeah, but only going forward.
Forget that. But for, if you're dropping 42 goals,
you make runs behind all game.
Like you can forgive that because he's scoring 42 goals and he's winning you a Champions League, so he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
When you're scoring hardly ever.
Yeah,
it's not great.
To your point, Ronaldo, Sam Z says Ten Hag wants to play positional football at some point, but Rashford at its core is a counter-attacking player. Is there an incompatibility between the two? That's what you were sort of suggesting before a little bit, wasn't it? Yeah. Big Dog again, he's back. And he's listing some of the same players. Getting rid of Rio, Everett, Vidic, etc. at roughly the same time was fatal. They were finished, but their presence would have made sure that Januzaj, Lingard, Rashford, Pogba and more had the right attitude. Lost generation. Fergal McClements says, could it be argued that our best performances this year have been without Marcus? Palace in the Cup and Galatasaray, even though we drew. I'm not going to sit here and say that Galatasaray performance was one of our best this season. I thought we were a lot better against Everton a few days before.
I think what he's talking about. I mentioned that to Steve. People, I don't know if you remember it, but we against Palace we had a very youthful kind of fringe player team. It was in the League Cup that we played against Palace in, and it was one of the most enjoyable performances of the season that we watched as fans. And I don't know if it's because there was this like youthful exuberance about it. There was this innocence about the way that we played. Everyone was running about. Everyone looked like they wanted to get involved. It looked happy. It looked more harmonious. And it was when none of like the actual proper main core of the team was playing. And then people looked at that and thought, is that even bigger of an indictment on these players that we're talking about? Because why does it take for players that supposedly don't have as much ability to play in a start core 11, that when they played together, they actually played pretty well. But it was also pretty fun to watch because it seemed like you looked like players that were enjoying it, wanted to be there. And we're running around.
I do think there's definitely something to the fact that, like Ralph Rangnick said, that he likes coaching players on their first or second contract. There's definitely an element of the willingness to do things. You're still trying to prove yourself. You will bust a gut going backwards because you think, if I don't, I might get dropped again, or I might never make it as a top player. You know, there's definitely that youthful sort of giddiness, energy, freedom that you kind of get. But also, Crystal Palace barely played in that game.
I was about to say. Also, Man City didn't play. Didn't play.
Yeah.
They dropped all the main players.
We literally lost to them about a week later when they played their first.
They brought all the big guns back and beat us.
But I know what you mean. There is definitely that, and I do think you need a good mixture of that. And something that I also want to talk about, it's sort of in relation to what we were talking about before, is a lack of sort of athletes at Man United. And you look through the team at the minute, and you know, left back Luke Shaw, incredibly technical. He's not posting huge numbers in terms of strength or speed. Maguire, he's strong, but there's not that sort of quickness, that sort of like excitement there in terms of his like physical abilities. I think you would say the same with, I mean, it depends who's playing, but Dalot. Like, you look through the whole team and we're sort of, I think Højlund's an athlete, I think Rashford is, but we're sort of lacking that. That's another thing people have pointed at. And then you've got McTominay in the middle, who sort of kind of is posing as that, but then isn't really there to sort of track his man, to push people out of the way.
He was getting eaten alive by Joe Linton.
Do you know what? If I was Scott McTominay, I'd be sending Marcus Rashford a bunch of flowers.
Yeah, thank you for taking all my
talking
stick.
About McTominay dropping an absolute 0 out of 10.
What do you think, Adam?
Sometimes just outrunning the other team gives you an extra 10-20%, I think. And like, that should be the bare minimum. And a lot of people were saying, like, if you look at this United players on paper against the Newcastle players, for example, United have got all these talented like players on like multi-million-pound contracts, and like they should be beating Newcastle, but Newcastle just completely outrun us the other day. So what, like, if the United players have got the talent, surely just outrunning Newcastle, like, we should be beating
guaranteed
them.
win.
Yeah, it's guaranteed. Like, that's how it should work, and I don't know why that's not happening. I don't know. Is that something? I can't imagine Ten Hag sat there going, "Don't run faster."
When someone's running, just leave him.
You were saying like, the manager's got to be telling him to do more than this, and that's not the first game. You've gone into the game and you've looked at the team sheets. Look at the team sheet against Brighton. Look at the team sheet against Palace. Look at the team sheet against Spurs. Yeah. And people might laugh because where Spurs are, but genuinely,
I'd agree with you.
Like, look at him and look at it and go, United probably got a better team. And we've been second best.
It's funny because you talked about how you feel like McTominay's got away with the fact that Rashford, his performance and that. Another thing that I want to talk about as well is we're talking about characters, we're talking about mental attitude, and we're talking about leaders. Our captain's Bruno, and as well as Bruno's done since he's arrived, and I don't think Bruno's ever a player that you can criticise his commitment and work rate. No. You can criticise him on the ball, you can't ever criticise that. But I've actually been quite embarrassed about how in the last 2 games Bruno and McTominay have played with an 18-year-old Kobe Mainoo in midfield, and I think they've allowed him to shoulder way too much responsibility in there, in big games away to Galatasaray. Kobe Mainoo, obviously he didn't start against Galatasaray, but he's coming into games and he's playing in games where away at Galatasaray is one of the toughest places to go in European football, from an atmosphere standpoint. St James's Park can be likewise. It can be hostile. It can be ferocious. You went to Goodison Park. That's similar,
especially after
he's playing in one of the most important positions on a football pitch in midfield, where there's no hiding place whatsoever. if you're a captain like Bruno or you're the senior players, surely you're going to want to help him, you're going to communicate, you're going to want to like give him options, be around him, talk to him throughout the game. And in these last few games, you're just seeing Bruno and McTominay just bolting forward, running here, there and everywhere like headless chicken, leaving Kobe Mainoo, 18 years of age, to kind of shoulder the whole middle of the pitch and also the pitch. And when he's getting on the ball, not giving him options, giving him hospital passes. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, we're talking about effort, we're talking about work rate, but I'm just thinking basic leadership qualities. I don't really get it, because McTominay's got away with it because he's bolting forward and he's getting on things and he's actually scoring goals. You can't criticise him for contributing a goal or assist, but I was looking at that. I've been looking at the past few games and I'm thinking, someone as talented as Kobe Mainoo, I wish he would come into a team where he's playing with other midfielders that are playing well, are positionally disciplined, have a character and leadership about him where they can help him.
Ideally, you know what I mean? You want him to sort of, I said this to you the other week, didn't I? After the game the other day, you want the senior players to almost coach him through these early games. Like you think of Roy Keane, if a player comes in next to him, or you think of Paul Scholes, if a player comes in next to him, they are talking to them non-stop. Here, go there, 1-2, go short, come in there, watch the left back, there's a man on your shoulder. All of these things where you should essentially be almost like, Mainoo's first few games should almost be on rails, and the rails are made by the teammates around him. And instead, he's the one driving the fucking thing.
No,
and everyone else is like, Mainoo, what do we do? Like
that's like that madness. Famous quote from Bobby Charlton at half time, I think, in the European Cup, and they were 1-0 down, I think, against Real Madrid. And Bobby Charlton sat down and just said, "Listen, lads, don't worry, just give the ball to me in the second half.
Yeah,
just look for me." I know, lads were like,
look how much Newcastle helped that.
Yeah, we can do that, and they did, and we won.
Liverpool, like Newcastle had a kid in midfield as well, and look how much they helped him. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like, couldn't Mainoo not get a bit of that support? I know there's probably a bit of a...
Who do you think? What's that going to do for him as well, like development-wise, you think?
I'm already concerned, right, because we saw how promising Højlund looked when he arrived, and I know he's come back from an injury. The past couple of games, you can see that he's starting to struggle now a little bit, and I'm wondering whether United's been described as a bit of a graveyard for football players at the moment, and you're bringing in talented players with potential like a Kobe Mainoo and a Rasmus Højlund, who can be centerpieces for your club being successful in the future for the next 10 years if you manage them correctly. And they're just coming into a team that's disjointed, a club that doesn't know where it's going, doesn't know who to turn to. And then you've got players kind of down in tools, players on too big money, players that fit different philosophies within the same team, and it's just like, are we going to ruin like the potential of the likes of Højlund and Mainoo? And it's actually sad. It's a sad state of affairs, to be honest.
I agree. Yeah. Just before we wrap up, I want to do Wally of the Week. Is that okay?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Wally of the Week is where we just pick someone that we think has been a bit of a Wally this week.
Yeah, so I'll let you guys have a little think. I've got one who's it's a tappiness.
Go on then, who's yours?
The former weatherman himself, who now thinks he's some sort of footballing expert, who's been, exiled to be in sport, whatever it is, after his sexist comments got him sacked from Sky. Richard Keys, who has come up with his pearl of wisdom. The 5-year plan at United, he's come up with his 5-year plan for Manchester United, and it is sack Ten Hag, obviously.
Of course, start with that. Go
to Germany, go to Leverkusen and get the former Liverpool midfielder Xabi Alonso. Get him in, right? Don't worry about what he hasn't won as a manager. Just get him in.
Yeah.
Give him 5 years, no matter what. Great. So if we lose every game, don't worry. Stick with him and pay him Saudi money. Pay him the kind of money that no other manager's on. So make him the highest paid manager in the league, give him 5 years no matter what, and ignore the fact he hasn't won out as a manager and he's an ex-Scouser. Don't worry about all that things. Just do that.
I love that. And I think that he's been massively impressive, Xabi Alonso.
No, he has. I'm not. But look, like let's get back to reality.
We don't know he hasn't been a manager for 5 years, let alone can steer Man United for 5 years. Like, I mean, it's just, but that's his thing, isn't it? It's come up with the most ridiculous thing you can possibly say and just sort of turn that up by turn.
When Dwight York's looking at you and he's speechless, that says it all. Because Dwight York's seen all sorts. And he was like, I ain't got any words for this.
He might have just tuned out.
Yeah, to be honest with you, he probably was like, what? Say that again.
I don't have a Wally of the week, you know.
I genuinely can't think of it.
Too nice.
Because the thing is, I've been on it before. He's got an excuse. As for me, I should know this is coming as well.
And also, you hate loads of things.
I do.
You're always in like, can you believe this? I'm so sick of that. What about some other? I'll tell you what I'm sick of. other rival teams scoring 2 goals in the last 5 minutes every fucking week. If it's not Tottenham, it's Arsenal. If it's not Arsenal, it's Liverpool like it was last week. There's always one of them. When's the last time we had a week where none of the teams above us or around us scored 2 last-minute goals?
Nicking winners at the end.
Every week.
It's pissing me off.
I'm watching it. Can't even bring myself to watch the Liverpool game. It's not televised anyway, but I can't even bring myself to find a dodgy stream because I know they're going to lose. I know they're going to win. And then it's 85 minutes gone. I'm like, they're going to draw at least here.
Never.
Lost.
I started watching it 3-2. I was like,
sick of it.
I started watching it 3-2.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And then as soon as Endo scored that equaliser 8, I said, yeah, Liverpool are winning this. And he scored again a minute later.
And then if they don't do it, Tottenham do, and Arsenal do, and City do. It's literally been every week this season. One of the bastards has scored 2 last-minute goals. Yeah. Done with it.
Right, you're done with it. You know anyone? Is anyone you thought, what's he doing?
No, it's annoying. What
they doing?
I'll say that I don't have one right now. And then as soon as
It don't just have to be football, by the way.
Yeah,
it can be something happened in your life.
It can be the weather. It can be anything. The Wally of the week is all-encompassing.
And I usually let's see if there's any comments that can bail you out.
Week, to be honest.
You two discuss, man.
Can I just say
I've got a phone book full of them, mate.
Well, I'll have one of yours then.
Okay, Starmer. There you go. He loves Thatcher. Do one.
Well, we've got a super chat from Aman who says, when are we going to criticise the coaching players don't know what to do during different stages of the match? So when are we going to criticise the coaching? Players don't know what to do during different stages of the match. We've had all kinds of players with proven records to great potential. What are the coaches actually doing since Fergie? I would almost say...
What was Kieran McKenna doing?
Yeah, well, I would almost
That's what I want to know. He's showed himself up, hasn't he?
That's exactly the point. The fact that there's been so many managers, so many coaches since Fergie, and they've all failed, suggests to me maybe they aren't quite the problem that we think they are. No. Maybe Jose Mourinho, who had won the league at every club he'd ever been at until he arrived at Man United, isn't shit. Maybe like Kieran McKenna, who is got Ipswich promoted and has now led them to the second best start in the history of the Championship, isn't an awful coach to have around, just teaching players tactics. Yeah. Maybe some of these people know what they're on about. Yeah. And the fact that they keep failing at Man United, there's other things at work here. So, I think that's a good point. But and coaches can be changed and things can be improved. And I'm not saying we know for 100% certain Ten Hag is going to do it, but we've tried changing the coaches and we've gone through a lot and it hasn't worked. Right, that's going to be all from us. Jay Marty, thank you very much for joining us. Where can people find you?
You know where to find me. Also, a big thank you to Surfshark sponsoring this podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. Adam, great to have you on. Hopefully we'll get you on again. Where can people find you?
Adam Abbey Cakes on Instagram.
There you go.
Yeah.
Adam Abbey Cakes on Instagram.
Oh, you bake cakes? I don't know.
Just cakes.
I've not mentioned it.
Yeah.
And Ronaldo, what about you?
Ronaldo Brown 98 on the X app. I feel like I've gotten a little bit more active recently. I feel like I've got a lot more.
Yeah, I've seen you doing some alright tweets as well. All your little stats and that. 218 minutes per goal for Martial and 204 for Rashford.
I haven't quite banged the same numbers at Jay does, but
come on, man, you can't aim a little bit lower to start off with, son.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Take that as you want.
You know what I mean?
Right, that's going to be all from us. Thank you again to Surfshark, like Jay said. Make sure you check them out at surfshark.com/paddock. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in a bit.